Welcome to a podcast by Kayleigh, the gateway to unlocking your unlimited potential. I'm creating an army of 6 and 7 figure makeup artists, and I want you to join me. In this podcast, I'm going to be crushing gatekeeping, opening the doors to the knowledge you need, and deep diving into the topics that can push us to the next level. Be prepared for epic guests and answers to the questions you have always wanted to know. No more small business. No more just a makeup artist. The beauty industry is a $250 billion industry, and you're in it. Let's get ready to open those gates. This is a podcast by Kayleigh. Hello everyone, and welcome back to a podcast by Kayleigh. Now today is a solo episode. It has been a little while since I have filmed one of these, but I thought today would be the best day to do this because I'm not sure if many of you know this, but I live on a very, very, very busy road in central London. I'm very, very lucky. I can walk to pretty much anywhere in central London. I live really, really close to the iconic Tower Bridge, but that does come with blessings and curses. Blessings being, I can walk to Covent Garden. If I get stranded somewhere, chances are I can probably walk home. Cons being, filming a podcast is very, very difficult on this road. There is non-stop traffic. But today, I have woken up and there is a little marathon going on outside, which again is a blessing and a curse because I've got to go to a bride later and public transport is a nightmare with this giant marathon going on outside my house. It does mean that my road is very, very quiet today. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to jump on this opportunity to film a solo episode for you guys. So I'm really, really excited today. It's been such a long time since I've done a solo episode. I recently wrote a blog post and it was my favorite blog post in a while. And it was 10 things that I have learned from 10 podcast episodes. And I thought, let's turn this into a podcast episode in itself because I feel like I can really talk about the things that I have learned and hopefully what you guys have learned from the epic guests that we have had on. So I'm really, really, really excited. It's really, really nice to just be you and me today as well. Like, I feel like the pressure is off. I don't have to host. We'll get into that later. So let's talk about the 10 lessons that I have learned from 10 podcast episodes and mainly the guests that I have had on these episodes. So why did I want to make this episode today? First of all, I truly do believe if you are not developing, if you are not growing as a person, your business is not growing. And being in the self-development space, being an educator, I truly do try and learn every single day. And if there is something that I have not actively learned, I will try and recap something that has happened recently and what I have learned from it and what I have gained from it or what I have lost from it. I love doing that when I release these podcast episodes because obviously every single episode and every single guest I feel like teaches us so much, especially as the host because, you know, you guys, you listen on the go. I know a lot of you guys are listening when you're on your way to a wedding. Shout out if you're on the way to a wedding right now. But I am actively sitting here listening to every single word, no distractions. My only job in that moment of interviewing is to actively listen. And when you actively listen, I feel like you take in so much. So I think selfishly, I gain a lot more than I thought I would hosting these episodes. What I thought this episode would be really, really good for is going over the biggest learns that we have been taught from each guest that has come on. So maybe you might have missed an episode. Maybe you might have missed certain things that I picked up on and you didn't. Or maybe you're going to learn something from this episode in itself. So let me deep dive into each episode that we have put out. The first 10, I'm going to probably do this every 10 episodes. And let's hear what I took away from each of these and maybe what you guys took away as well. So episode 1 was my intro episode. There is not much to be learnt from this. It was a teeny tiny 15-minute episode, but I did learn something. When I put that episode together, it was me launching a podcast. And the thing that I learned from that very first episode is do the damn thing. I have wanted to podcast for ever. Like for years. I've been listening to podcasts religiously since I worked at Tesco, and that was a long time ago. I remember I worked nights and I would always be listening to, do you remember the Ricky Gervais podcast? Oh my gosh. It was so funny. And that was what I would listen to. And I've wanted to do a podcast pretty much for years. And I always put it off because I was like, I don't know how to edit it. I don't know how to do a podcast. I don't have anything to say. There's so many podcasts out there. What will mine add to the equation that somebody isn't already doing? Doing that very first episode, I learned, number one, it's not that scary. Honestly, it is not that scary and it's not that hard. Literally, all you need is a mic. I invested in a very good mic. I thought, you know what? This is audio. I need the audio to sound really good. So I did invest in a really good mic, but I know a lot of podcasters have like a £50 mic or something relatively inexpensive. The only other thing you need is an editing software and a place to host. My host is free. I use Spotify, and the editing software that I use is Audition. And that has probably been the hardest learning curve in this whole process, was learning to edit. I will say I've got the hang of it pretty much around episode 6 or 7. And now I can edit an episode pretty quickly. You know, I still do need to outsource it. That is an option. If you have the funds or the resources to outsource an episode, do that. You know, it is something off your plate. But the main lesson that I learned from episode 1 is it's not that bad. It's not that hard. You can figure it out. We are smart women. And I feel like this block that I had for years and years and years, it held me back. I wish I had done this sooner. That is my only regret in this whole thing, is that I wish I had done this sooner. So my biggest lesson from episode 1 is just do the damn thing. You will figure it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let me tell you, my intro, I listen to that still and I'm like, oh, that could definitely be better now I know what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Release what you have when you have it. Release perfection, because that will hold you back for so long. I just needed everything to be so perfect when it didn't have to be. What I created was good enough. You guys seem to really like it. And that is okay. That is the best that we can do, and we will only get better. Okay, episode 2 was my first solo episode, and it was that standard, you know, got to explain your history episode. So in episode 1, I went into the why behind by Kayleigh, the why behind this podcast, and my experiences up till now. And that was one of my favorite episodes to film, actually. I remember it so vividly. I remember, you know, my boyfriend was out and I just quickly filmed the episode, and it was really, really, really fun, that episode. It was the episode for me where I learnt all about editing because, you know, the intro episode, the very, very first one, I think it was like 15 minutes. Anyone can edit that. But that long 40-minute episode, which I think was around an hour before I edited it down, that was when I learned about editing, okay? You know, I said from episode 1, we are smart women. We can do this. We can learn this. It's the actual mental block of thinking about how hard it is that's harder than the actual edit itself. Editing, I'll be real, it was a learning curve. I have never edited audio in my life, not even on like CapCut or InShot or Canva. It was my first baby steps into editing, and I had to edit this gigantic episode of pure waffle. What did I learn from that experience? I learned we all start out as beginners. Nobody knows everything when they first start. Think about when we are children. Think about when we are babies and we take our first steps. Were our first steps perfect? The first time we tied our shoelaces, was that a perfect bow? Absolutely not. But imagine if we failed on that first hurdle and stopped. We would never be the amazing walking humans with tied shoelaces that we are today. And we always need to remember that everybody starts as a beginner. That amazing eyeliner that you see on Instagram that you wish you could replicate, that person's first eyeliner did not look like that. If you go back and listen to your favorite podcaster's first episode, I guarantee it sounds so different to episode 300. If we look at Makeup by Mario, I'm pretty sure Makeup by Mario's first appointment did not look like the Met Gala and Kim that he did last year. Everybody is a beginner at some point in their lives, and it is allowing ourselves to be beginners. If there is something that you really want to do, if you want to start a podcast or a YouTube channel or an affiliate marketing program or content creation, and you're put off because you're thinking, oh my gosh, but I'm not where everybody else is, allow yourself to release that. I'm inviting you right now to release that, because that person that you're comparing yourself to was not that perfect 3 or 4 years ago. Nobody is. Nobody knows what the heck they're doing, but persist with it. If I had given up when that edit in episode 2 was really, really hard, I would not be here now, and I can whack out an edit in a couple of hours. And I know in 10 more episodes, my edit is going to be even better. So think about that. Think about, okay, that epic eyeliner. Let me do that 20 times and see what happens. Don't see what happens. Watch what happens. I can guarantee it. My own mentor, he always says something that just really knocked my socks off. And he said, persistency always wins over talent every single time. And I always think my mentor said that Michael Jordan himself was not born the GOAT. If you have watched, there's a Michael Jordan documentary on Netflix. He says himself that after a game, he would go and he would practice 300 shots. He said that he himself credits his talent and success because he never stopped consistently practicing. If you've watched, what is it? There's an amazing, what is it called? It's the film that has Will Smith in it, and it's about Serena and Venus Williams. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a really inspiring, but also like strange film. And Serena and Venus Williams were not born Serena and Venus Williams. You will see in that film, if you've watched it, they practice relentlessly every single day after school. I mean, their dad kind of makes them, but what I'm trying to say with this is that nobody is born like that. It takes persistency over talent every single time. Okay, episode 3. Episode 3 was my last solo episode before I started interviewing guests. And if I'm honest with you, I wasn't like 100% crazy about this episode. I was not like, yeah, this episode is going to kill it. It was one of those things where I thought, this is okay. And I don't know if this is, going to be amazing. For this, I thought it was okay. And I thought it might be useful. And this episode is my top business tips for makeup artists. Now, I second guessed it a bunch. I almost didn't put it out there. And this, to this day, is my most popular podcast episode. It is number 1 on the charts. Number 2 is the one with Marissa Gray's artistry. And she is coming for that top spot, which I am so here for. I hope she gets it. It was really, really surprising. I did not expect that that episode would be my most popular. It's the one that I've had the most feedback on. People always are posting that they're listening to that episode or posting what they took from that episode. And I didn't expect it. So this goes to show my lesson from episode 3 was you just don't know what's going to happen. So release it anyway. Release perfection, release insecurity, because what you are holding back could resonate with people more than you know. And I think this is really common. A lot of people often tell me, like my students, they will often tell me this post that they weren't crazy about, they didn't actually like, has become their most viral post. Or, this TikTok that they were like, I just released that because, I did it on a whim, has become their most viral TikTok. So it's really, really funny and interesting how this happens. My biggest lesson from episode 3 was to just release it because you never know what could happen. Episode 4, this was my first guest, and I went in easy with my first guest, if I'm honest, because it was my incredible friend Storm. She's a fellow educator. She runs a team. I was so nervous. It was my very, very first time interviewing somebody. And let me tell you, interviewing is a skill that you don't know that you need for podcasting. This is the one thing that I am so hard on myself about, is my skill as a host, because let's be honest, nobody teaches you how to interview somebody, or they haven't in my experience anyway. I was really lucky because obviously interviewing a friend is so much easier than interviewing a stranger. And this is where I feel like my own lessons and my own knowledge really comes into play, because I feel like when the guests became introduced to my podcast, that is when we upped the game a bit and the knowledge bombs were dropped. And it's when I personally started to learn so much. But the biggest thing that I learned from Storm, and her very inspiring story. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, Storm has a team of 20. She has her own studio. She has her own education side. She does these amazing portfolio days. But the thing that I learned from Storm was the importance of coming at everything with love. The thing that I found amazing about Storm's journey was to do with her team. Her team was never a conscious business decision or a cash grab. It happened very, very organically. She had more weddings than she herself could fulfill, so she started to bring on extra team members to help her. It was never intended to be a stream of income. Her team was purely set up to support her and her clients. And she has always come at it with love. She nurtures, she grows, and she supports every artist in that team. And I know this from firsthand experience. I've gone to a couple of Storm's portfolio days. I've actually hired out her studio myself, and I have met the incredible Fran, who is an amazing hair and makeup artist who works on Storm's team. I've actually met quite a few of Storm's team actually, and all of them are just the nicest people. They are just so sweet, and you can tell that the relationship that they have with Storm isn't like Storm is their boss. It is like Storm is their mentor, and they love Storm and they want to support Storm, and they want to support Storm's business because she has supported them in theirs. And this was really interesting to me because I have mentored many people who have teams, and there's always been a lot of bumps. There has always been a lot of road bumps in the journey. There has always been a little bit of push and pull, and I'm never going to speak for Storm. And, we're sure that probably Storm has, road bumps. No journey is immaculate and flawless, but there is such a difference in the attitude, the way Storm talks about her team and why her team is so successful and why it's growing year on year and why her business is growing year on year, as opposed to other teams that I see in the space. The one defining thing is love. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but when you come at anything with love, if you nurture it, if you grow it, if you water it, if you talk to it, if you love it, that thing will grow into the most beautiful thing and it will bloom. And that is what has happened with Storm's team. So the thing that I learned is if you are doing anything, come at it with love always. I know this is so cheesy. I know, I'm listening to myself and I'm like, oh my goodness. This is not just unique to Storm. I have seen many of my guests, and the one defining characteristic that a lot of them have is they approach everything they do not to get money, but with love, because they love it, because they want to support it, because they want to help someone, because they want to nurture it. And I think that was one thing I really took from Storm. Okay, episode 5, we're halfway through. This was the episode where I interviewed Amber Harlow, and this is one of my most talked about episodes. Everybody absolutely loved this episode. So if you haven't listened to this, Amber Harlow is an incredible British makeup artist here. She is known for her bridal and she thrives in it. If you go on her Instagram, look at any of her pictures, literally take your finger, find a random picture, literally swipe, press, and I guarantee there are brides in those comments hyping her up. Now, I have never seen anybody with brides who loves them as much as Amber's brides love her. I have no idea how she does it, but on the podcast, I got a little inkling into it. And now me and Amber are doing a masterclass together. So this episode also bloomed a really beautiful friendship between us both. Now, why do I think Amber is so successful? Why do I think Amber is booking out weddings 2 years in advance? She is booked every single month. She is doing 80 to 90 weddings a year. Why do I think that is? From my perspective, I think it is because Amber truly lives, breathes, and is obsessed with bridal. If you just head to her Instagram right now, look at her stories. She talks about her brides like they are her sister, like they are her best friends. And if you listen to this episode, you will know that really came through. She bloody loves them. Honestly, I love my brides. I have become friends with a lot of my brides. I really do love them, especially when it's like my ideal client and you're like, yes, I love you. But she loves them on another level. And they love her back. Like the presents that I see her get bought, the way they buy her cats treats, it's just a relationship that I have never seen in the industry. And the one thing that I learned from Amber, and again, it kind of goes back to what I learned from Storm as well, is if you truly are obsessed with something, success will come. Amber is so authentically herself. She is always talking about how much she loves her cats, how much she loves animals, how much she loves Disney. She is so authentically Amber. When I met Amber in person for the first time, she was exactly what I expected. She was exactly who she is on Instagram. She is so authentic and she's so cuddly and warm and fuzzy. And that there is why her brides book her. I guarantee it. They want that warm, fuzzy, they want that sister of a makeup artist. Amber spends 3 hours with her brides at her trials. She really gives them all of her. All of her. And the thing that I learned from this is if you show up with love, with nurture, if you're obsessed with what you do, if you truly bloody love what you do, it is impossible to not succeed. And I think this is something that I have definitely noticed in my mentorship program with my own students, just with observations with the industry in general. When I have a student who comes on the mentorship program, I know instantly whether they love the people or whether they love the artistry, or whether they're just in this industry just to be in this industry. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If this is your career, and I think there's a lot of pressure to love what you do. I'm going to sit here and hold my hand up right now and say, I don't wake up every single day loving what I do. I think that is a myth. I think that is a legend. I think Amber is maybe the exception to this rule. I sometimes wake up and I'm like, bloody hell, this is work today. This is work, and I'm just going to get through it. And there are going to be some great parts to my day, and there's going to be some not great parts to my day. I think there is so much pressure to truly love what you do. But there is a difference between people who have a spark in the industry and people who want it, and those who are just going through the motions. If you're going through the motions, you're going through the motions. But if you're hungry, there is no doubt in my mind that you won't make it. You have to have that hunger. Amber was hungry. Amber loved what she did. She loved the artistry. She loved the clients. And Amber is booking 80 to 90 weddings a year because of it. Same with Storm. Storm loved what she did. She loves running a team. She loves supporting and nurturing her team. Therefore, it was impossible for her to fail. With me and my business, I truly, truly love this community that we have built together. For me, money is always second. For me, number one is nurturing and making sure that every woman in this community is earning more money, is earning and creating a fulfilled lives for themselves, has independence and has freedom. That was always my mission first. Money, obviously we need money to live. Girls got to eat, but money always is second to me. And I think if you twist that around a little bit, if you're suddenly sitting here thinking, oh gosh, maybe I've got it the wrong way round, put people first. That is always, in my opinion, a recipe for success. Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I have to tell you something. My signature program is back. Introducing the next season of my Statement 12-week course for makeup artists, the By Kayleigh Mentorship. Now, I've been running this course twice a year now for about 3 years, and it's honestly so special to me. We spend 12 weeks together where I teach you almost everything there is to know about the business side of makeup. From ideal client, money week, website week, 2 weeks of sales and marketing, portfolio week, every single Monday, join live or on catch up for our teaching calls. Every single Friday, book your slot to get mentorship and guidance by yours truly. It is the original mentorship for makeup artists, and I am so proud of this course. The things my students have achieved literally make me burst with pride. From 0 clients to fully booked wedding seasons, that is truly a win that I have seen several times on every season, by the way. From securing luxury clients to working with celebrities, from leaving their full-time jobs to going full-time in makeup. It was their hard work and their hunger that got them there. But I like to think I played a very teeny tiny part in this with this amazing course. Doors close soon, so don't wait to grab your slot. Epic change is coming, and it's inside the By Kayleigh Mentorship. Now, back to the pod. Okay, let's go on to episode 6. This is when I interviewed my wonderful friend, Valentina. Now, Valentina is a world-traveling, award-winning wedding planner and multi-award winning. I've known Valentina for, quite a while now. Me and Valentina met in a coffee shop. I'm sure you've probably heard the story on the podcast. We met in a coffee shop and we started doing a Disney series together of fairy tale Vogue weddings. And we don't do those anymore. Both of us are sadly too busy in other aspects of our business, but we still regularly meet up. We go for hot chocolate dates and coffee dates and get our nails done together. And it's very wholesome, wonderful friendship. And I had to get her on. I thought, let's get a wedding planner's perspective. I think it's so mysterious, isn't it, when you work with a wedding planner? So I thought, let's get one on and just break down those walls. One thing that I loved about our episode together is when Valentina was so open and honest about her burnout that she had after COVID. Because obviously we had the big COVID boom. There was all the postponed weddings. Everybody in this industry was worked to their max capacity. Valentina included in that. One thing that she did on this episode was she was extremely open and honest and vulnerable. I loved that. There were some answers I asked Valentina some questions, and sometimes she would openly admit, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. When I was asking her about the future of her business, she was open and honest and said, I don't know. And I really, really applauded that, because I feel like there are sometimes questions that I get asked and I feel like I'm out here squirreling away trying to find an answer. And the thing that I learned from Valentina was it is okay to admit we don't know everything. We don't need to know everything. We are amazing, multifaceted humans growing every day, and it's okay to change our minds. It is okay to admit that, yeah, we might have made a mistake. It is okay to be burnt out. There is so much shame that happens around burnout. I just want to applaud anyone who is burnt out right now or has had burnout, because it means you worked bloody hard because you cared about something. So pat yourselves on the back for going through it and making it through the other side. And I think that's what I learned from Valentina, is it's okay to not be always put together, to always be perfect, to always know your next 5 steps. We don't need to know our next 5 steps. Maybe just the next step, or maybe just the next hour is okay. And I really, really enjoyed that. Okay, episode 7. Episode 7 was with the amazing Jen Daminger. And oh my goodness, okay, Jen pitched me in the DMs. She said, hey, I think I can offer this to your podcast. What do you think? And I was like, let's do it. Let's take a shot. So it was my first experience, episode 7, with interviewing somebody that I didn't actually know. But I have to say, hands down, this was the most fun podcast that I have filmed. Me and Jen did not stop laughing. That I had to edit so much. It was probably one of my hardest edits because I just had to edit out all the laughing. And I think that really does come through in that conversation. Jen was really open and honest about her struggles with burnout too, especially with her mental health. And I thought that was really, really brave and vulnerable for her to admit. In this conversation, we talk about mental health in the beauty industry, mental health when you are exhausted and when you don't want to show up anymore, when you don't even want to get out of bed anymore. And from this, I learned that it was okay to just stop and take a break. Now, after this episode came out, you might remember that I actually did take a break. There was one day that I showed up on stories and I was really, really, really stressed out. My VA had just quit. She had got a new job and she had just kind of quit, and all of her workload was added to mine. And I had a podcast to edit, and then I filmed a podcast episode, and in it, you can just tell that I am not in it. You can tell that the love that I mentioned in those other episodes was not there. And after this episode, because of Jen's advice, I took a break. You might remember that I went on stories and I looked haggard and I was on the verge of crying on stories, which I never do. I'm never that person. And I remembered her advice in this episode and I took a break. I had a couple of weeks off and I came back and I was stronger and more inspired and happier. And I really realized, gosh, it's like May or June and I have not had a break since Christmas. So I think Jen really brought me down to earth in this episode that, again, release perfection. Release, for me as an educator, I sometimes need to release the fact that I'm a human. I don't have to be this perfect like CEO, badass woman all the time. I can be that most of the time, but sometimes I do need to admit to the community, to you guys, and to myself, girl, you need a break. So I loved that episode. I really, really am so glad that Jen pitched me because it was so fun. Fun fact as well, in this episode, me and Jen were just like gushing to each other. It was so strange because it felt, this sounds insane, but me and Jen were just talking and we were both so excited and we were so happy and we were so like connected in this moment that my power went out. My power went out. I think it's at the end of the episode. It went out for like 5 minutes. And obviously when you're filming, I use Riverside FM to film. And, you know, when something happens and you leave the filming room, you lose that audio. So in this episode, I was so glad when I came back to the room, the audio was still there. Jen's audio was still there. It was fine. Our audio was fine. But we just had this crazy, like magnetic connection when we were talking about all the amazing things that we want to do for women, and everything just exploded. It was so funny. Honestly, I would love to just do a podcast with Jen because I just feel like my stomach would be hurting all the time from her energy and her humour. She's so funny. So go and give that one a listen if you haven't already. Okay, episode 8 was another solo episode comeback where I addressed the elephant in the room, which was I had taken some time off. And from the podcast, I'd actually taken a month off, I think. It was like 3 weeks. So in this episode, I kind of changed the format slightly. I realised that I myself was so obsessed with everything that I create has to be value giving, content creation machine. Like my newsletters, my blogs, everything had to be like giving everything. Like I had to help in some way. I guess it's the people pleaser in me. So in this episode, I did an episode that I just wanted to do. So this one was kind of for me a little bit. I just wanted to have fun. I didn't necessarily want to give like crazy amounts of education and value. I just wanted to talk for a little bit and have fun. So I spoke about 3 horror stories that I have had in my career. And let me tell you, one of them, I need to do a TikTok about that very first horror story. If you haven't listened to this one, go and listen to at least the first horror story, because it's an insane story that gives me chills every single time I even think about that situation. So what did I learn from this episode? And what did I learn from my kind of 3 weeks to a month off? Well, I learned that not every single piece of content that I produce needs to be a banger. Not everything that I create by Kayleigh needs to be value packed, action packed, has to give every single part of my brain. It doesn't. Sometimes I can create content for me, and that's okay. And episode 8 was an episode for me. It was an episode that I wanted to do. Nobody asked for it. Nobody asked for it. And it was one of my most favourite episodes to create. And I think I did give some value in that, because there was something to be learned from every single one of those horror stories, by the way. So I think if there's anything that you can learn from episode 8, which turned out to be one of my, again, most listened to episodes, I know that I give the advice out there, create for your ideal client. Everything you do should be for your client. You know I give that advice, but sometimes create content for you, because ultimately you need to enjoy what you're doing as well. You can create content for yourself, and that's okay. Episode 9 was a big one, because in this episode, I interviewed the legendary Mia Connor. This episode came completely out of the blue because I put out an Instagram Q&A and I asked people, who do you want to see? I kind of ran out of guests, and for me, I very much do create this podcast to interview the best and to learn their stories and to share them with you guys. And, I wanted to know who you wanted to see on here. And Mia Connor, the legendary Australian makeup artist, was requested so many times. I thought, let me tag these people. They're not going to see this story unless I tag them. So let me tag them. So I tagged each and every requested guest, and I didn't expect anything from this. I really, really didn't. But I ended up securing 6 guests, including Mia Connor, who was the very first one that I managed to get on. We had an amazing episode. It was actually really, really funny. A little bit of backstory to this episode is Mia doesn't have the best internet. And obviously I'm interviewing somebody literally in the furthest corner of the universe, Australia. So there was actually like a 5 or 6 second lag. That didn't affect the edit, but it affected our video stream quite a lot. So it really meant that me and Mia were not able to connect as strongly as, say, I have been able to my other guests, because there was always this, if somebody lags on Zoom, there's just like a hint of awkwardness, because you're kind of always waiting for somebody to catch up and you don't want to cut them off. And me and Mia were cutting each other off all the time. And it was just tech issues central. Now, I actually met Mia. She invited me to her London masterclass, and me and Mia got on like an absolute house on fire. It was so amazing to meet her. And none of that crazy lag, thank goodness, in person. So what did I learn from episode 9 with Mia? Mia's story was incredible. I had not heard of a makeup artist going on a world tour before Mia, who her artistry is requested globally, that she actually goes on world tours. So on this particular tour, she went to Dublin, London. I think she went to, I want to say Morocco, I think, and Dubai. And I learned that what we do in the beauty industry has been boxed into, if you're a hairstylist, you go and work in a salon. If you're a makeup artist, you go out to clients. But what I've been learning throughout this whole experience is that is absolutely a myth. Mia Connor goes across the world and teaches her craft. Storm runs a team, runs an educational business, has a studio. They're not in boxes. I feel like when I spoke to Mia, I really realized that we can be makeup artists, hairstylists, we can be in the beauty industry, but we can do whatever we want in that facet. We can teach it, we can travel, we can do so many things. But so many of us and our little brains, even as amazing as our brains are, we're boxed in because society and years of generational beliefs have conditioned us to believe that we can only do those things. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, that I'm talking a load of nonsense, please listen to these episodes, because each and every person, Jen, Amber, Storm, Valentina is a wedding planner, but she got hired recently to speak in the Middle East on wedding planning. She got flown out there and she spoke on it and she flew back. She had a little holiday in between. Mia Connor travels the world globally every single year teaching her artistry. So if you think that you can only make money or you can only have a career where you go to somebody's house and do makeup, it doesn't have to be just that. If you want it to be just that and you love that, absolutely. But what I'm trying to say is your career can be anything you want it to be in the beauty industry. You just have to pave that way. You just have to take the pen, like I always say, take the pen and write your own ending. Don't let generational beliefs or society make you think that your career is one way, because it's certainly not. And I hope as well that I am proof of that. The Mia Connor one also was a juicy one, because I learned that you don't ask, you don't get. Now, I could have sat here and I could have let guests pitch me, and I could have stayed with people that I know in the industry, you know, friends and people that I've had DM conversations with. I could have done that, but instead I tagged them in my Instagram story. And sometimes, yeah, it's a little bit cringe. I'm sure it is. Sometimes I feel a little bit cringe doing it, but you don't ask, you don't get. I learned from the Q&A, and now I do this Q&A at least once a month, to keep banging the drum, keep asking, keep persisting, keep consisting, just keep bloody going. Lisa Eldridge is one of the most requested guests that I've had on this show. She is so requested. Every single time I do the Q&A, Lisa Eldridge, I guarantee, is going to be in there 5 or 6 times. Lisa Eldridge, I tag every single time. And so far, I've managed to get through to her assistant. Every single time I do it, I break down one more door. So if you're sitting there right now, you haven't got many bookings or you haven't got many clients, we as makeup artists need to stop sitting here and letting everything come to us. Because truly, if you want to take that pen and if you want to pave your own way, you need to go out there and get it. You need to grab it with your own hands and not let that decision be in somebody else's. Because let me tell you, it works. The guests that I've had on since we're only going up to episode 10 today, but, beyond 10, each guest, even in the original 10, each guest has been phenomenal. Each one of these phenomenal guests, from Storm to Amber to Jules, who is coming on, he's the founder of Isle of Paradise, to Hunter to Mia, would not be here if I had not gone out on a limb and asked them. So if you want something, go out there and ask for it. Okay, episode 10. My 10th guest was Hunter Donia. Hunter is essentially the hair American gay version of me. He's incredible. He educates his own community, which is a community of hairstylists, on similar things that I educate you guys on, from business to hair tips. He's just amazing, and I've always been such a fan of him. He also has a great podcast that I love to listen to as well. One thing that I learned for him, which I didn't expect to actually. One thing that I learned from Hunter that I didn't expect to learn from Hunter was that he makes every single decision in his business for his clients. They are at the center of everything, even as an educator. So every practice, every automation, yep, some of them have served him and have been for him, but they also seek to always improve the client experience. And that was a big learn that really, really surprised me from Hunter's episode. I didn't expect it to be so client experience orientated, but it made so much sense. A lot of Hunter's success comes because he is constantly striving to improve his customer experience. He implements systems that keep him accountable, but keep him accountable for his clients. So I really, really liked that. He has such an amazing work ethic, and it really made me look at my own business, especially the one that I have for you guys by Kayleigh, and think, gosh, sometimes I implement a lot of systems for me, but maybe I need to turn that on its head and implement them for you guys. So After this episode, I actually grabbed my notebook and I jotted down so many things that I want to do on the By Kayleigh side of things that help improve the customer experience for you guys. And there are so many things like my website. After this episode, I thought, God, my website's a bloody hot mess. There are so many things that I could simplify or systemize or something that could make this journey, especially the one that I offer on an educational standpoint, just more smoother, that could actually help you on your business and makeup artist journey a little bit more. So I really, really like that. I definitely think in my little brain that I am more business centric at all times. And I think sometimes I need a reminder that I have this business for my clients. For you guys, you are also my clients, but also for my makeup clients. And I sometimes need to do things to make that experience better. So the By Kayleigh website is going to have a big redesign soon. And I hope that it's going to be more streamlined so that you can go on the website and find exactly what you are looking for. So those are my 10 lessons. And I really, really hope that you were able to resonate or learn from a few of those lessons as well, especially if you missed the episode or you haven't listened to it yet. This is what I've learned, and I'm really in such a privileged position because I do get to interview these guests. And when you're the interviewer, as I said at the beginning, you absorb so much because you are so present in that moment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this episode, another solo one from me. We have got so many amazing guests coming up. I'm so, so lucky. But if you ever do want a guest, the best way to get them on here is to tag them. Just tag them. Go on my Q&As that I run every single month and tag them for me. It's been really nice to have another solo episode. I really, really do love them. They are, trust me, so much easier to edit. But obviously, I do hope that I have been a good stand-in guest today. We have so many amazing guests coming up. I cannot wait. And honestly, I'm loving doing this podcast. I really, really am. I hope that it shows through, and I hope that you guys can see that. As I said from my very first lesson, I wish I had done it sooner. So I will speak to you very, very soon for another episode of a podcast by Kayleigh. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Tiny, teeny, tiny request. If you guys are listening on Spotify, if you could just leave me a little review on the star icon at the very, very top of the page, that really helps give my podcast a little boost on Spotify. And if you are listening on Apple, if you would be so kind as to leave kind of a wordy review, this really, really, really helps Apple kind of boost me in the algorithm, those damn algorithms. So if you would love to leave a review, please do, but no pressure, because I know how annoying it is having to sign in, especially to Apple. But anyway, I will see you next time for another amazing episode. I hope you enjoyed today. I know I have absolutely loved filming another solo one for you guys. So until next time, bye guys. You have been listening to a podcast by Kayleigh. Thank you so much for tuning in today and being on this mission with me to self-improvement and taking steps towards financial empowerment. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to follow me on the gram at By Kayleigh Podcast, where I post pretty much daily. I would also love to hear your thoughts, feedback, and energy. So please do leave me a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you are listening today. In the meantime, I want you to go forward, believe in yourselves, and be the change you want to see. Bye, guys.